Welcome to Sector 3 in Excel. This is a follow-on video from Sector 3, a step-by-step guide, and shows you how you can analyze business segment data generated using the Sector 3 option in XBRL to Excel. So you've downloaded the Excel spreadsheet and you've opened it up, and this is what you will first see. You've come into a page with the raw data in, and that's in the tab marked XBRL. Now this data is organized by the segments in or the sections in which the data was disclosed. So these, for example, will correspond with the sections that you would see, for example, in a paper copy of the report, or indeed the Word document containing the filing data. And so, as you can see, lots and lots of it, and you will see that we have standardized the values. For example, the actual data item was disclosed. In this case, for Lockheed Martin, was sales revenue, but we are regarding that as revenues at a standard level. And you will also see the classifications that we put on the sectors. So 3364 was the code we used for aerospace, so we can see that's been used there, and 334 we used for information systems. And if we go back up to BA, you will see those codes appearing as well, and we go right to the top, we will see that its data item for the revenue numbers was called revenues, hence the reason why we need to standardize, because not every company uses the same data item for values which potentially are comparable. Right, so you can see, as I said, reams and reams of this information, which is great, except in this format, obviously not particularly easy to analyze, which is the reason why we've set up a couple of other tabs. The first of which I will show you is sectors. In the sectors tab, we are able to look at each sector as a whole, and we do this via a couple of pivot tables. If we go over to the options ribbon and we click on refresh, kapow, the pivot tables fill up with data. Now we need to adjust the filters so that we can see what we want to see. For example, not particularly interested in 2009, really want to look at the latest year, which is 2011. 2012 is actually the default year that we would ordinarily see, except this company hasn't got 2012, so it doesn't know what to put in, so it just shows 2009. And for this pivot table, we're going to put in 2010 actually, so we need to change it anyway, so that we can look at comparisons between the two periods. And down here we have some values which are basically working off the pivot tables up here. And we need to do a little bit more tidying up, probably a good idea to get rid of this blank sector. Basically any sector, any segment which hasn't been classified will be regarded as blank, so we'll get rid of that so that we can just focus on the two sectors that we have chosen to classify, aerospace and electronic systems. And we can then go down to have a look at our values, and 3364 aerospace, we can see its performance, and we can also see its performance against information electronic systems. So if maybe we highlight all of those, we can see that yes, aerospace doing a lot better than electronic systems in terms of better sales growth, better profit margin, and better return on assets. So we can do some very useful things with this data with the aid of some pivot tables. Of course, we may also want to look at this information on a company by company basis, in which case we can do that by going to the companies tab. For the pivot tables in this sheet, we do not need to refresh the data, as it's being keyed off the same data set as for the sectors pivot tables, the data set which is in the XBRL sheet. So we don't need to do that, but we do need to consider the filters, and again, we probably don't want to look at 2009, we really want to look at 2011. These years, by the way, are the fiscal years, and the fundamental X processing engine is able to generate some standard fiscal years for each company, so that you're always comparing like-for-like data. Again, we want to look at 2011. This time, this table is for income. These are the standard data items, which we mentioned when we were talking about the XBRL data in that particular sheet. They are also created by the fundamental processing engine when the Sector3 data is created in the first place. So again, we want to look at 2011 for the assets, and we've got some revenue numbers which we want to look at for 2010, so we can do comparisons from one year to another. For example, look at sales growth, for example. Back to pivot tables. Again, we might want to tidy them up to remove all the data which is not classified in the sector, so we can just focus on the two sectors that we've chosen to classify. So a very straightforward process to sort that out. Again, just click each one, and before you know it, you have disappeared. Right, and we can then go back to our ratios. This particular row here shows the performance for each of the sectors as a whole, so these percentages will be familiar to us because those are the ones that we were looking at on the previous sheet, but we can now compare them with respect to each particular company. So we can see, for example, that General Dynamics has performed very well relative to the aerospace sector. Similarly, as far as profit margin is concerned, it has got a very healthy profit margin. But then when we look at return on assets, we see that the standout performer is Lockheed Martin, with some very tidy numbers. So as you can see, we can do some very impressive analysis with this Sector3 data using a number of very simple pivot tables which shape the data so that we can have a look and see exactly what's been going on at a sector level, and to therefore draw some conclusions about the performance of each sector and also the sectors as a whole. Thank you for watching.